Welcome back. Well, as the protests overnight displayed, there is considerable opposition to the new president-elect of America. A lot of people on the streets and highways last night were younger voters. The demographic age split from one exit poll is stark. Edison Research polled thousands of voters at over 350 polling stations, and they found 53% of over 45s opted for Donald Trump, while 42% of 30 to 44-year-old respondents voted for the businessman. But of the 18 to 29 age group, only 37% opted for the reality TV star, while 55% voted for the Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton. Well, with me are 4 millennials. That's the group of population broadly aged between 18 and 34. First of all, Ian Sprouse, a master's student from Dallas, now at the London School of Economics. Haley Yazitakin, a mother who emigrated to London from Oregon with her family. Loic Fremont is from Maryland. He's here studying at University College London. And Daniel Almeida, a 22-year-old businessman, starting a business graduate from Florida. Well, welcome to all of you. First of all, your thoughts, starting with Haley, the morning after the night before.
Sorry.
What's your reaction to the fact, I mean, you were pro-Clinton, you have ended up with Trump?
No, I'm not pro-Clinton.
Oh, I'm sorry, sorry, my notes are wrong. You're actually going to be very happy about this result?
Happy. I'm glad that it's him and not Clinton. I'm hopeful that he'll be a good president.
You have a similar view?
Yeah, I was initially not pro-Trump, but I slowly became pro-Trump because just Clinton's campaign has been too negative for me, and I felt like she's painted half the country in a negative fashion, and she hasn't issued really important concerns for a large part of the population.
Do you feel unusual being a young Trump supporter?
Not at all. A lot of my friends voted for Trump, and a lot of them are ethnic minority, Hispanics in Florida, so I don't necessarily feel that a lot supported Clinton, and a lot actually voted third party as well.
Haley, do you feel unusual being young?
No. A lot of my friends, I'm not from a very diverse area. I'm from the backwoods and the mountains and everything, but a lot of my friends and family voted for Trump. It was kind of a last-minute thing. We were hoping for a different candidate, but in the end, when it came down to these two, it was important for us to vote for him.
Going over this side, the pro-Clinton camp, I mean, Ian, first of all, what are your thoughts? What do you feel about what you've ended up with?
Well, honestly, I was really surprised at the election results. I was really expecting it to go towards Clinton. That's what a lot of the polls were indicating. And after it happened, I saw the news, well, I was really surprised. I was quite disappointed, but now I've kind of just come to accept it. Now we just need to try to reunify America and just make it, as Trump would say, make it great.
Loic?
So I was expecting Hillary to win, but I wasn't altogether too surprised the day after upon hearing Trump's victory, because there were a lot of factors during the Clinton-Trump race that Clinton handled badly and that Trump did well that inevitably led to his victory.
Haley, when you see people protesting, lots of young people on the streets of the US protesting against what has happened in the election, what do you feel about that?
It makes me a little bit upset, especially after a few weeks ago when everybody was very outraged that he said he wouldn't accept the result immediately until it was like proven and everything was counted. So for them the very next day to not accept the result is kind of aggravating and hypocritical, I think.
Daniel?
Yeah, I agree. I could see the frustration where people have, because back in 2012, for example, we had petitions from Republicans to secede from the United States when Obama was elected, and we're starting to see that with some Clinton supporters in California, for example. So I think it's a natural human reaction. I'm not necessarily too surprised by it, but I'd prefer if we could all just get along and try to mend our relationships with each other.
Ian and Loic, I mean, you would have liked to have seen Clinton in the White House. When you see people on the streets protesting against the result, do you support them?
Certainly not. I mean, this is part of democracy. You can't always win. So you really kind of have to just accept the fact and really kind of hope for the success of the next president. And historically, that's what it's always been. But
absolutely. The democratic process has has happened. It must be respected. And rather than going out in the streets and protesting and crying for secession or crying for a recount, now is the time more than ever to put aside bipartisan politics, to put aside bickering, to put aside complacency, and to go out and remain politically engaged as people were during the election.
Now, compared to what we saw during the campaign, what we heard from Donald Trump yesterday was a much more conciliatory tone. I mean, do you feel, Haley, do you feel that what we get in the end from Donald Trump is going to be different from that campaign?
I think it's going to be a lot more laid back. I think he knew that in order to get to be heard, he had to play to people's anger. Over the last 4 years, there's been a lot of things that people have been upset about. So he's had to kind of be the devil's advocate, kind of, to make people angry and make people want to go out and support something that they passionately believe in.
So you think he sort of...
I think he's going to calm down now.
Up the rhetoric
Yeah.
to try and get people motivated.
Yeah.
Wasn't that dangerous?
I think in some ways, yes, it's effective. I think it might have attracted some of the wrong people. I know that there's been some like vandalism as a result of his presidency. But overall, I don't think it will cause a lot.
Daniel, do you think we'll get a different President Trump to the campaign Trump?
I feel there will be a lesser tone. He'll calm down the tone, but I think the themes will still be very relevant. However, he's already shown that he's hushing the tone up, especially on immigration, but he's still keeping to his rhetoric concerning trade policy and renegotiating military deals, which I think was an even more important topic for the people who voted for him. So in that regard, I think he'll calm down.
Loic, does that appease you in any way, that what you heard in their campaign might not necessarily be what you end up with?
I mean, that's inevitable with any election. Had Hillary gotten into the presidency, it would have been the same thing. Even had Bernie Sanders won the election, it would have been the same. The president is not the state. He does not represent all the power, and he does have to go through a system of checks and balances that will keep his policies to a certain extent in check. And even though there is a Republican majority House and Senate, a lot of the Republican Party, elected officials from the Republican Party still do not agree with Trump to this day, and they will be there as an obstruction for some of his more out there policies.
Ian, does that comfort you in any way?
Certainly. I mean, we certainly have these checks and balances. However, I'm also concerned that now that the Republicans control so much of our checks and balances process, Congress, and now the executive branch, how effective is that going to be? And I certainly hope the weight of the presidency brings Trump to a more centrist policy stance.
I wonder, Daniel, if we start with you, what you think we will be, what sort of place we'll be in say, a year's time. What will the first few months of a Trump presidency bring?
I think there'll be a realignment in international relations, how we act with the rest of the world. A lot of that year, especially Trump is saying that the first 100 days will focus again on trade negotiations and military negotiations. So we might see him try to repeal NAFTA, get out of TPA, TPP, and things like that. But if I may address what they stated before, the Supreme Court was majority conservative when they passed the Marriage Equality Act. So people need to also understand that we're not going to go back. I think he just plays to people's ears and follows what the public wants.
Loic, one year from now?
1 year from now, I think the Trump administration will have given a sort of jolt to the system that was required, where it will force Americans, it'll force especially our generation, the millennial generation, to finally stop listening to the elected officials in the party for who to vote for, and really start thinking for ourselves and really taking a cold, hard look at the system and seeing how rotten the system has gotten, how bad it's gotten, how corrupt it's gotten, how everything has led to Trump in essentially being able to get to this position of power. So I think that will certainly be a change that we'll see in the next year.
Haley?
I read his plan for the first 100 days, and I'm hoping that he can deliver on his promises to bring back jobs, and he seems very passionate about helping the school system, and education is really important. So I'm hoping that he works as hard as he says he will on that.
And Ian?
Well, I certainly hope that more people will get politically active as a result of this, because I mean, I've never seen people so emotional over politics. So I hope a year from now we'll see a lot more people involved.
You've all been talking together here in a spirit of harmony. Do you think America, just a final word from both of you, can America move forward easily from this point? Let's get Daniel.
I mean, of course, it's not like we haven't had divisive presidential elections before. And I mean, it's not the 1800s. I hope we don't have a civil war because of this. But again, I think Americans will look past this. And you see that already with Senator Elizabeth Warren stepping up her game and saying that she'll work with Trump to better America.
And Loic, one more thought from you.
My thought is, to the people who think that this was the worst day in American politics, there is always the day after the worst day. There's always the next day where the sun gets up, you leave your house, and you go to work, and you carry on. And that's what's essentially going to happen. People are going to carry on, they're going to do what they need to do, and they're going to try their best to make the best possible living conditions they can.
Haley, very, very briefly.
I hope so. I think people put each other in these boxes and these labels, and we need to realize that we live in a system where it's very easy to move forward, but due to the checks and balances, it's really hard to move back. And even though some of us may believe one thing more than other people, we're still individuals, and we can still agree on a lot.
Final thought.
And I agree. We definitely need, America needs to come together, unify, and stand behind our new president, whether you agree with his policies or not. His success is ultimately our success.
Well, thank you. On that note, we will leave it there. Thank you very much to Haley, Daniel, Ian and Loic. We appreciate you coming in today, and all the best.